Hey y'all, so today I want to talk to you about how I healed a broken heart with astrology. And this is a bit of a long story. I'm going to try and make it short as I can, but I made me some notes. This is actually a blog I posted a while back, but I've noticed that people don't really read like they used to. So I'm taking some of my blog entries and filming them because people are more apt to watch the video than read the blog. So to get started, I want to give you a little background. Sometimes I struggle with depression, and it's not a depression to the point where I can't get out of bed or go to a job or that it interferes with my life in any way. Uh, in fact, if you were around me and interacted with me, you wouldn't even realize that I was depressed. It was just a really sort of deep melancholy and negative thinking that sticks in my mind. And so one of the ways that I coped with that is by getting involved in the hookup culture. That is, I would meet men online, have sex with them, and then probably never see them again. Um, and it's something that I didn't really do very often, maybe once every 3 or 4 months or so. Uh, and so around 2018, I met a younger man. I'm 47. I think he was about 22, and he was not like the other men that I met. He was very sweet and nice, and unlike the other men I met, that as soon as the sex was over, they put on their clothes and they would leave. But this man, I'm gonna call him Loverboy. Loverboy, when it was over, he would stay. We would cuddle, we would have long conversations, just enjoy each other's company beyond the sex. And what started as sort of a one-night stand blossomed into a sort of friends with benefit situation. But then he became a little bit more erratic, and I went like a long time without seeing him or hearing him. So what I did was, out of the blue, I got an email from him after probably 2, 3, maybe 4 months. And in this email, he explained to me that he struggled with depression. I didn't tell him about me, but he told me he struggled with depression and anxiety, and that caused him to abuse drugs. And he explained that when he was on these drugs, it made him like really, really horny. And he enjoyed coming over, being with me, having our conversations and everything. And he told me that the reason I hadn't seen or heard from him in those last 4 months is because he had been in rehab. And apparently, whatever medication they put him on to help him recover, it prevented him from having an erection or maintaining an erection. And I explained to him, it wasn't just all about the sex for me. That was nice. That was a good part of it. But I also enjoyed his company. I enjoyed the cuddling. I enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed, spending time with him. But for whatever reason, I guess he was embarrassed. He didn't really reply or come back over. And so I continued to email him. I couldn't just let it go. I continued to email him and text him, but they went unanswered because, you see, in my birth chart, I have Venus in Scorpio, and it's in mutual reception with Pluto in Libra. And what that basically translates to is sort of an obsession with love, and sex being a very deep, almost mystical experience for me. It's magical for me. And so I really couldn't let that go. So I started monitoring his social media accounts, and eventually, also through a friend of a friend of a friend, I found out that apparently Loverboy got a girl pregnant, and they were planning on getting married. But then, what I later found out was that it turned out that he was not the father of the child, that the girl had lied to him. And I guess this sort of triggered him, because then he deleted all his social media accounts. And so I attempted to reach out to him again, no answer, so that's when I started trying to do magic. And I attempted a few return to me spells, but they really didn't work. I didn't see any movement on the issue, and I even looked for him in my tarot cards, and I kept getting the Nine of Wands, which I interpreted as him being in rehab. So, unable to call him back to me, I set about creating his natal chart. And in astrology, a natal chart is a chart showing where the planets were on the exact moment you were born. And so the way I had done this is I knew his birthday because one night when he was in the shower, I opened his wallet and peeked at his ID. So I knew what day he was born. And I knew that he was born in this area. So I erected a chart for that day for this area, and then for the time I figured out from what I knew about him, I assumed, and I could be completely wrong, but I assumed his rising sign was Aquarius, and then that also put his Mars in the 8th house. And Mars in the 8th house in a man's chart is one of the indicators of having a big penis. And frankly, Loverboy did have a big penis. So those two things kind of fit for me. And so what I did was, here is the chart. You can see it. Let me cover up his name. Wait, let's cover up his name in case y'all can see it. So this is his chart that I created. As you can see, I put in the colors of the elements. That's something I like to do. And then these are all my notes about him and his personality. These are also notes. Any natal chart that I do, this is what they look like when I'm done. And so I set about delineating his chart, and this really helped me understand him because a lot of things really seem to fit. For example, his moon in Gemini explained his moodiness. His 3rd house Aries in Saturn explained his depression. His 12th house Neptune explained his neurotic tendency plus his musical ability. His 8th house Mars explained his insatiable need for sex. His 3rd house Mercury indicated his ease with conversation. And his Chiron in Libra in the 9th house indicated a wound revolving around relationships and partnerships. And finally, his North Node in Virgo in the 8th house indicated that in this lifetime he was supposed to overcome illusions, codependency, and escapist tendencies and become more organized, efficient, and productive. So what I did was, this natal chart helped me understand him better. And so I carried this chart around with me for one moon cycle. That's from like about 30 days. And occasionally I would pull it out and read it and look at it and think about him, think about our relationship, and then different insights would come to me while I was reading these things. And like I said, just carrying his chart, reading it, it made me feel closer to him. So then what I did was, I did what's called a composite chart. And a composite chart is basically where you take two charts, usually a natal chart, and you combine them together. It's called a midpoint composite chart. So you look at each of the planets in the chart and you see where they meet in the middle. So where does his sun and my sun meet in the middle? Where does his moon and my moon meet in the middle? Where does his Mercury and my Mercury meet in the middle? And I do that with all the charts. All the planets. And so this is, let me cover his name again. This is the composite chart that I created based on his birth chart and my birth chart. And again, you can see all my notes about this. And the composite chart is a chart of the relationship itself. And and it tells you things about the relationship. For example, our shared ascendant indicated an inability of one of us to commit to the relationship. Our sixth house moon indicated that one of us put in more work in the relationship than the other. Our ninth house Venus indicated a relationship built on sexual exploration and adventure. So he was experimenting. I knew what I liked, but he was experimenting. And that also indicated that this is a relationship where sex would constantly need to be stimulated. So it was a relationship based on sex. Our shared Scorpio Mars indicated a heavy emphasis on sex in the relationship, and sex being used by one person to control the other. Finally, our shared Uranus in the first house indicated an unstable relationship that suffered from sudden and unexpected changes. So I don't know how accurate my natal chart was on him. I did my best to make it as close as possible to what I thought it would be. I'm no expert in astrological remediation or rectification, rather, but everything just seemed to fit. And so my purpose here was to understand him and to understand our relationship from an astrological point of view. The last thing that I really looked at in our composite chart was the Titus aspect. And again, aspects refer to relationships between planets. And the tighter or the closer an aspect is, the more powerful it is. And what I saw was that our Titus aspect was Venus in the ninth house formed a trine to Uranus in the first house. And this aspect indicated a relationship in which each partner was interested in the other. That was very evident. But they could be openly affectionate with each other. They could share their interest in new, original, and unconventional ways. That all happened. But here was the drawback to that was one partner tended to play the demanding teacher, and the other was the rebellious student. So the relationship provided a means by which each of us can explore new experiences which were, unfamiliar to one of us or considered taboo by society that really helped shape who we are. So basically, then I took the composite chart and I carried it with me for a moon cycle for about 30 days. And again, I would take it out now and then and read it and get insights and what have you. And then after that 30 days, I took time, I read over his chart one last time. I read over the composite chart. I thought about everything that happened between us. And then I felt like these 2 months of carrying these charts around with me, of reading them, of analyzing his personality, of analyzing our relationship, I felt like this was therapy for me. I felt like this was a grieving period for me. And it did help me heal my heart and get over it. Wherever he is now, I wish him the best. I cannot sit here and say if he was to come knocking on my door that I wouldn't let him in. Yes, I would let him in. But I'm no longer obsessing over the relationship. I'm trying to vibrate my planetary energies. I want to go take it to a good place, not a bad place. So I'm sending love in that universal love in that direction without attachment and just sort of letting it go. And so that is how I healed my broken heart with astrology and was able to move on. Anyway, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. I hope you all enjoyed this and have a great day.